Welcome to this episode of Goat Advisors. Okay, we're tremendously excited to share with you who we've selected as an advisor that falls under the term the greatest of all time. That's going to be you. And the Goat Advisor, okay, it's all about being able to help you sort through the myriad of options that are out there for you in advisory personnel. Well, one of the challenges that everybody has in the consulting space, people that I talk to, as most of you know, we have a expense reduction consulting company, and we work closely with consultants all over North America. And what we find is that how do you separate the wheat from the chaff? You know, how do you separate the qualified and the unqualified? How do I make a choice that, although it may be qualified, matches well with what I'm necessarily looking for, tailored, if you will, to my specific needs and benefits? And so I'm going to introduce today Robert Curts. Robert is our selection this week as our GOAT advisor, and for a very good reason. I'm going to give you an opportunity here, Robert, to both introduce yourself, but I also want you to tell them how we originally intersected. Share with the audience, if you would, how you and I met, because I think it becomes an interesting story. And of course, the relationship has evolved since then. But Robert, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here. This is an exciting opportunity. So we met on LinkedIn. I had put out a post just posing a question in the professional realm about language, professional speakers, how they manage themselves on stage. And, you can have a great concept, but does it make it a better concept to use four-letter words every other time, or use that as your favorite adjective? Or would the speech come off just as well, or the presentation, without that kind of language, to maintain your professionalism? Or am I just too old?
Yeah.
And you came back and said, that is someone that I want in my sector, someone who feels that way, because not at all. And I think you said something like, I don't believe there's ever been a speech that I've heard of where someone said, wow, that would have been much better with foul language, or something like that. And you and I just started talking after that about professionalism and soft skills and different things. Everything has its place, but does it belong in a professional realm?
Oh yeah, great. Thank you for that. And we're all inundated, right? With posts and communication constantly, like thunderbolts that are coming from different directions. And most of us, I know I do, I don't even notice most of them anymore. But that stuck out to me because I'm always on the hunt, and I'm looking for advisors that are worthy of the GOAT status, okay, and that are worthy of being called to the attention of our audience. And my thought is that first and foremost, a lot of people have the skills, and they have the background, they have the technical knowledge to be able to supply advice in their particular area of expertise. But what I like to focus on is a quality individual, and a quality individual. One area is that of standards. Okay, and when you raise the point of professional language, I think I made the point that it may very well, with a lot of people in the audience, there's a lot of big names right now that are drawing huge crowds, that are really peppering their presentation. Say that, Peter Piper, peppering their presentation with colorful language, and they're wildly successful. And I was fearful that maybe other people would look at it and say, that's the reason that person is successful, which is not the case. And I thought, well, sure. I like the idea of calling it out that 50% of the people in the crowd, or some percentage, might be totally comfortable with that, might even add a little bit of pep to it. But on the other hand, there may be 50% of the people in the crowd, or some substantial percentage, that would be put off or be offended. On the other hand, using maybe a little more creativity in the way that you make your presentation, and a little more thought maybe went into the speech writing, let's say, you might very well convey exactly the same powerful message, but do it in a manner that 100% of the audience is accepting of. So that's how we kicked things off. And then as we got to know each other a little better, I started exploring your background, and part of my exploring the background is, okay, he's a great guy. He's got some good standards. I'm finding this out. But, from a professional standpoint, does he meet the standards of a go-advisor? So if you don't mind, Robert, share a little bit about your professional experience and not only what you're doing now, but kind of where you've been as a professional that would qualify you to be a trusted resource or a trusted advisor in your consultancy practice.
Sure. I started basically in accounting 21 years ago. So 1999, I got my first cost accounting role for a small company, and had been to school. Of course, went to school, have a master's in accounting, and started in, like I said, 1999 for my first cost accounting role. After that, I became a assistant controller for a fairly large worldwide company. So it was my first big exposure at the big time accounting, the big guys. And I had a lot to learn. I thought I knew it all because I had 6-7 years of college and all these, awards and stuff. I didn't know anything when I first walked in. I was like a deer in a headlight. But 20 years later, I've been a CFO, been a controller, worked in public accounting. So I have a very broad range of accounting, finance, troubleshooting, finding, where the inefficiencies are in a system. And so now, and I started my own bookkeeping business just as a side hustle to make some extra money, sort of. And now that's what I do full time. I've not come out of a CFO role, and now I'm just working my business full time, executive decision, business solutions. I sat around one day and I thought, what am I going to name this company? And said, well, it's time for me to make an executive decision on this business. And that's, and I kept having people tell me, make an executive decision, just do it. Okay. And so that's what I did. And that's what I named it, because there's a lot of people out there that, they're kind of waffling back and forth. And now it's time for them to make that decision and go to the next level in their business and get back to maybe what they love to do, and let me help them in other areas.
Well, that's great. One of the things that one of my favorite jokes, right, is that a lot of people live on someday I'll, right? Someday I'll do this, and someday I'll do this. And there's value in just saying, let's pull the trigger. That good is good enough, and let's initially anyway, let's get the party started, and then we can refine and continue to improve. I asked you about your background. Obviously, I knew your background, but I asked you about your background because I wanted the audience to see something very important. When we choose a GOAT advisor, we're not only looking for someone who is of the right character and has the right standards, but in addition to that, obviously, they have to be competent. And one of the challenges with competency is that in the consulting world, there isn't a barrier to entry. In some of the companies that you've ran in key financial roles in the past, there's millions and millions and millions of dollars that are involved. There's extremely difficult human capital to be able to attract. There's political issues that are oftentimes involved, right? There's all these barriers to entry that you just can't wake up one day and say, I think I'd like to compete with that big concrete company over there. There's a lot that has to go into that. Okay? But in consulting, it's been my experience that some people will take a weekend class and now all of a sudden they're an SEO or digital expert, or they're a cash flow management expert, or they're a consultant in this area or that area. No offense, I'm here to advocate on behalf of consultants. I'm a consultant myself, and I'll say, as a consultant myself, I've been guilty, Robert, 100 times in my life of saying, those who know do, and those that can't teach. Right? I'm wondering if when you were in the heat of the battle with a business and you had consultants calling on you, if that thought either was uttered or crossed your mind.
Yeah, it did. I've hired consultants before, and I want to be sure that they're that they know what they're doing, that they're competent, and know what they're doing. So I go out of my way to try to make sure that people know I'm competent, with even if it's just a reference, or, I'll give them some free tips and pointers and say, look, this, you might try this, or, your balance sheet looks like this. It all comes down to debits and credits in the end of the day, but are there ways to effectually do that? And I find that a lot of smaller businesses, they just can't afford the good accountants, the big name accountants. They're never going to afford. Well, they may, if their business grows. That's what we're hoping for. They're not going to afford a big four, or one of the big names, and even then, I came from an era when I was actually in school, is when Enron and Sarbanes-Oxley and all that stuff came around. So as I was actually in school, going through the landscape, I was privy to that, all of that being passed through legislation and enacted, and now it's a way of life for public accounting anyway.
Right.
But yeah, there's so many consultants out there, and you have to find who knows what.
That's exactly the point. And frankly, they're not bad folks. It's like when you came out of school, right? And you're like, I've had these marks, I've invested this number of years, I've been in an educational environment, I know theory backwards and forwards. Ask me a buzzword. I know any buzzword you can think of, and I can give you the definition of it on a test. And you literally felt, with the vigor and confidence of youth, right, that you could tackle anything, right? But as you got into the real world, get your nose bloodied a little bit, see the complexities of the accounting world, you go, you don't know what you don't know, right? But then all of a sudden you get the rude awakening that you're being shown some of the things that you don't know. What we want to do here with Goat Advisors is we want to hand select the best of the best. We want to be able to pick people for you that have been vetted. We want to be able to pick people that have 21 years of experience and the ability to perform. The other thing I think that's of value here is that you've chosen a different path, but if you wanted to, you polish off the resume, and as a former CFO with your background, you'd have the opportunity to move into a responsible, comfortable, non-entrepreneurial, right? The package pulled together, retirement plans, the comfort of a big company's role, but you've elected to serve, and you've elected to take your education and your experience and make it available to companies that, as you said, wouldn't ordinarily be able to afford your level of competency and your experience. In the area of heart for service, another thing that we really look for is, one of the boxes that secretly gets checked in most cases for a Goat Advisor is someone who's a servant leader, someone who has leadership capabilities but is willing to serve. And one of the things that stood out with me when I was considering Robert for the Goat Advisor Award is his focus on service. And I was impressed to learn a little bit more about that. I'd like for you to share with the audience something about your background in heart for service. You're modest by nature, I know, but I want them to have some sense as to what you do with your spare and your free time in the area of serving your fellow man.
Well, I serve as the Justice Ambassador for Prison Fellowship. So we try to, in that role, I try to lobby, politicians or people in office that have the power to change certain laws and stuff and such. Maybe make people's lives better upon reentry. The Chuck Colson Institute, that's part of what I do. But also Jesus in Prison Ministry, other prison ministries, both on the inside and outside. I love to empower people, and that's one of the ways I was very good at it as a CFO. I was very good at it as a controller, and my accounting teams. So I thought to myself, why can't I do that same thing? So I basically teach finances to guys coming out of prison. I don't do it full time, obviously, but we try to get them back on their feet, reunited with their families, get them jobs, well-paying jobs, not just minimum wage, because they probably have hefty fines and things coming out. But we try to get them good paying jobs. If they have learned a skill, we try to emphasize that. But we've had some success stories. We've had a couple of gentlemen that are working for very large companies now. At one as a national sales organization. He'd been in prison for 10 years. He came out, he said, look, I have these skills before I went in. How can I use them now? Nobody wants to deal with me. I said, that's not true. And so we started working together, and now he's a national sales exec. They moved him to the West Coast, and he's reunited with his family now, and just a phenomenal success story. And we've had a couple of those, and that's what excites me about it, is seeing someone else empowered. I don't do it for them, as I told you. They have to do it themselves, but that excites me. I get excited about that sometimes more than I do accounting. If I can see somebody grow, but that's where the accounting piece comes in as well. I like to see a small organization grow over the years, and if I can give them if I can tell them something that I've used in a worldwide company, around the globe, to help them just in their state or in their area, or in, to get going, that excites me.
Well, that's cool. There's some of you in the audience who are going to be asking, well, almost everybody that we're going to be hearing this is going to own a business from. So if any of you have opportunities inside of your business and you think, I would be happy to talk to Robert and see if, explain to him the role that I may have available or what my company's all about, and work in conjunction with him to help somebody that is looking for a second chance to get back on their feet, you'll definitely have in the end of this, the ability to be able to contact you. And so this is not necessarily about collaboration purely for the purpose of improving the profitability of our businesses, but we're certainly all about that. But if you have that opportunity to reach out to Robert and you want to collaborate, he'll give you the truthful inside scoop as to where exactly this person's at and his best read in terms of their heart and their sincerity as far as rehab. But you're right, coming out and working at the car wash isn't going to solve all the problems that a lot of these folks need. And a lot of them have abilities that will contribute to your companies that you can use too, especially in today's environment. Sometimes there's real difficulty in being able to find real talent, and there's a renewed need to look for more creative places for resources. So let's look at that. When you talked about empowerment, empowerment with your teams, I assume what you're talking about there is your teams that are under your control as a CFO. Then you say, we're going to transfer those skills and we're going to provide that same level of empowerment in the prison ministry concept. And you talked about a success story. I imagine there are more, but that would be interesting with that. Sure. Our audience is going to be more interested in, or as interested in, how that same skill level of empowerment translates into a professional relationship with them. Okay, they're not under your control as an employee. They're not in the unique position of someone who is looking to re-enter society. But I would imagine that there is some transferability in the empowerment concepts that have worked in one environment that probably work in the relationship with your clients. So tell me a little bit about that.
Oh, sure. You can take a small I hate the word mom and pop, but mom and pop business, smaller business, startup. Maybe they have one employee working for them doing the bookkeeping. We can go in and say, okay, is it your systems that aren't good enough or aren't doing what you need them to do to take you to the next level? Is it your personnel? Do they need trained? And sometimes that person, if you give their bookkeeper a set of tasks and say, you want to complete this by the end of the week, or this is what you should be doing on a monthly basis, and then step back and watch them complete those tasks, then they start growing within that business. So if you empower that person, sometimes they just don't know what they don't know. And if you enlighten them on that, which is what you would do as a controller or CFO, you hire a new staff accountant, and you're spending, already, employers, they don't want to spend money in accounting, it's overhead. But a good accountant, the cost of a good accountant or financial advisor or someone that comes in and looks at those processes will save you in their fee in efficiencies eventually. Maybe not right the first day, but eventually they're going to save you those. And if you can train their staff, or if you can train them, and say, this is, you could have this system over here, just use this system. It's much easier. It's not, this one isn't, for your company. And that may be all it takes for them to free up 20-30 hours a month, to work on what they actually started, what their love is, what their passion is.
Okay. All right. Well, great. Well, that's interesting and helpful. As an expense reduction consultant, we get brought in to reduce the costs of doing business in a plethora, 6 or 8 different important expense categories. So we're deeply inserted into our clients in their payables, their contractual relationships with their vendors. And we're up to our elbows in conversation with their accounting and admin staff. Their chief financial officer is oftentimes at point as far as the project is concerned. So someone with your experience, kind of project that you've managed over time. The reason I make that point is when we talk to financial professionals, one of the things that we see, and what our clients, we talk to the CEO, what do you think about your accountant, right? And if they have an unfavorable opinion of their accountant or their financial professionals, they always say the same thing, Robert. They say, oh, those guys, they look in their rear view mirror, right? They're looking at the rear view mirror, which everybody knows what's behind you. And the rear view mirror is this size and the windshield is this size. And what we want is someone that is able to be forward thinking, to be able to forecast with us. And one CEO I talked to recently, one of our clients said to me, it's not too tough if you're the weatherman and you say, this is what the weather was last week, right? Not too tough. You tell me what the weather is next week, that's something. Okay? Well, one of the things that we look for in an advisor, a GOAT advisor, greatest of all time, captioned advisor, is someone who is competent in the role of finances, but can be forward thinking. If you're dealing with these little entrepreneurial businesses, medium-sized entrepreneurial businesses, guidance and vision in taking their history and their data, showing them how that data can be converted into a strategic plan for the future, I would imagine would be an important differentiator between you and a typical accountant or financial manager. What say you as it relates to that?
Well, like you said, anybody can tell you what's happened. And I think a lot of businesses, whether they're large businesses, even, they have people on their staff that are in that role. And that's what they've told them, what last month did and what changes do we need to make? It's why the financials, they're due the 10th of the month in a lot of companies around that time. Yeah. That's so we can make changes in this month before we have another disastrous month. So the difference between that person on staff that's being paid to tell them how the company is performing, that's usually what a CFO, controller, some CFOs are visionaries, controllers, staff accountants, they're telling you how the company performs at this time. The difference is a consultant that comes out, they're proactive instead of reactive. I go in and I'm more proactive. I'm looking at, what's your goal? What's a goal that you would like for this last quarter of the year? And they usually look at you, they're going, well, we got the election, we got the, this going on, we got coronavirus, we got, COVID or whatever. And so those things are hard to navigate, but you can look at their landscape and say, okay, here's how I can help you reach that goal. We see an inefficiency over here. We see a wrong platform. Maybe this person isn't qualified for the position, and maybe you need to look at some education for them or replacing someone. So we can go in and find, okay, you need to find some collaboration in your expense categories or something like that. Because the accountant inside is going to tell you, well, you paid this much for oil for your trucks, whatever the case may be. But I'm seeing this on the horizon of all these other businesses, and I can tell you what someone in your category is doing, what they're doing in this subcategory over here that is more efficient than maybe what you're doing. Have you thought about trying this?
Well, one of the things I like about what you just said is that another challenge, sometimes it's a knock if you on the financial side of the advisory world, and we deal with that heavily at my expense reduction consulting practice, but is that they're preconditioned to be risk avoidance. And the small entrepreneurs and medium-sized entrepreneurs, they have their life on the line. They were willing to mortgage their home, sign personally, put startup capital on credit cards, borrow from family, right? Because they have a vision, they have a dream, they have a goal. They want to improve their circumstances for themselves and their family. And one of the things that I'm hearing from Robert is that he makes their vision his vision. And off camera, I can tell you that very definitely it becomes a shared set of goals that now no longer entrepreneurialism can be pretty lonely. You're an entrepreneur with your own business, and to have a comrade in arms that also happens to be a financial professional that brings global financial governance and those kind of talents and skills and ability and experience to the benefit of a smaller business is absolutely invaluable. But as a GOAT advisor, we're interested in the whole person, not only their capabilities. Hopefully at this point, you've gotten a pretty good sense that if you need someone to provide a fractional CFO, or you need someone to provide some bookkeeping and admin kind of outsourced help, or you need someone to come in and troubleshoot a problem that you have, or let's say an employee's left without a lot of notice, or maybe someone's absconded with some money, or whatever's happened where you need a troubleshooter to come in and immediately come to your aid, someone that's credible, someone that's trustworthy, then Robert is probably a pretty good choice. In some ways, for some of you, might even be certainly qualified, if not even exceeding your qualification needs. But let's learn a little bit more about you, Robert, as a person, because when I hire someone in a consulting capacity, I want to make sure that I'm comfortable with them. That sure, the boxes have to be checked, that they have the capabilities, but it's a pretty intimate relationship, that a bookkeeping or advisory service relationship that you have with your clients. So let us learn a little bit more about you when you're not serving through your prison ministry, and you're not up to your eyeballs in credits and debits, as you said. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your family and the things that you like to do. Help us get to know you a little better.
Well, I'm married with 3 kids. All my kids are grown. They're in their mid-20s. I have 2 granddaughters now. Just had a second one a year ago. Her first birthday is next month, so we're excited about that. And her sister's birthday is right next to her, so both of them come up due next month. So I took my one funny story. I took my 6-year-old granddaughter fishing for the first time, because I'm an avid fisherman. Love to fish. I'm not good, but I'm avid. And love to be on the water, love to be in the woods. Just kind of, it's where you find some solitude and some peace. Took her with me, though, for the first time. She'd been begging and begging to go fishing, taught her how to cast. Well, we used a real worm. That was my mistake. And she swung this thing out, and comes swinging back to her. And she didn't let go of the button in time. Worm didn't touch her. It went by her leg, but she threw the whole fishing pole in the river and took off running the opposite way.
Throw it right in the river.
We didn't go fishing anymore this year. Yeah, throw it right in the river. So, but I still enjoy spending time with them. And that's something I also relate to my clients with. I try to, unless they don't want that, they don't want to disclose anything, I try to get to know their family goals. And, do they have kids going to college? Do they have, where are they at in life? Are they a young couple? Are they single? Those things make a difference maybe in what their dreams and goals and aspirations are. And so because of what I do in my personal life and my family, and, love all my kids, obviously, have a great wife. She helps in the business. She does some of the bookkeeping. She does HR for companies, and she can even give some advice in HR for companies that might be, looking to hire or whatever. But that's mostly my time. I like spending that with our 2 dogs and us. We're empty nesters. So that's basically what I do in my free time, is fish and spend time with my granddaughters.
Well, that's great. One of the things that I wanted to kind of do a call back to is when we talked about that initial post that you put out, and you talked about, hey, we're professionals. Let's rise up to the standards of professionals. And I think you had off camera with me some comments about the role of professionalism that you feel like all consultants and really all business owners should try to hold to, and some of what you used as far as your hiring practices in the past. As a GOAT advisor, we obviously are looking for somebody who brings a little higher cut of cloth, if you will, or level of professionalism to the role. Maybe you, as we're getting to the close here, your feelings on professionalism, your anything that you want to share in terms of your own insights, or what you would bring to a potential client that you're onboarding from a standards standpoint.
Yeah, professionalism, I think, is still has a place in the world. We have the woke crowd, if you will, that jeans and a polo shirt and maybe some flip-flops in the office, and that's fine. It has its place. If that's what your company goal is, that's why maybe you started your company, because you didn't want to wear a shirt and tie every day. But
your own destiny, right?
Yeah, it's not just your dress, though. I think you show up as respectful for the position. You're hiring someone that is professional. You're expecting me to be a professional. So I'm going to at least, number one, look the part. But I'm also going to be, politeness, manners, showing up on time. If you're going to be late, call someone. Those soft skills. My wife is in HR, and that's one of the biggest complaints that she has all the time is that people are late. They won't show up. They just, she's hiring someone. She schedules an interview. They just don't call or show up or let them know that they found another position or not coming. Well, that kind of soft skill, I think you show that respect for the profession, and you show that respect for the client. If you show up and they're wearing a hooded sweatshirt and jeans, that's fine. But that's not what you hired me to do. You hired me to bring professionalism to the table. And I think those soft skills need to be in the industry, any industry.
Yeah, I think any industry, but maybe especially the area of finance. When we're talking about your money, right? You're talking
Absolutely.
about a steward that's going to be looking over your the business. You'd made a comment to me in a previous conversation about finance being and the financials of a business being the music of the business. I enjoyed the art metaphor there, but for the benefit of the audience, why don't you amplify what you were talking about there a little bit?
Well, it was the finance and accounting are the language of business.
That's right.
And they pay. That's what I'm paid to do is come in and translate that for you into something understandable. I meet business owners that completely know their financials inside and out. I meet business owners that have no idea what their balance sheet and income statement are telling them. So it's what the position calls for. It's what the consulting calls for. If they know that much, then okay, we go deeper. But if they don't, then we go, okay, let's look at your balance sheet first. Let's look at where your company is. Do you know that? If they do, but that's what I was talking about is we can translate that for you.
Okay, great. And did you tell me that you have a wedding that's in the family that's up and coming? Did I remember that right?
No, well, not yet. Not yet. We've got one that's coming, but due to COVID, they've put it on hold. So
yeah, I knew
they're waiting until they don't have any restrictions.
I was wondering how you kissed the bride and she has a mask on. I was wondering how you were going to pull that off. But it is an impending event, is the word I'm remembering. So let me close with this then. If you're looking for an advisor, you're looking for someone who can help you in the financial side of things, and you want someone that's competent, okay, those boxes have to be checked. But you're also looking for someone who's a quality business person and a quality human being, a quality person, someone with some standards, someone who's willing to give of their own free time to serve and help others. Someone that has an impeccable track record, and we've spent time with and vetted him for you. So if you want someone who has the kind of track record that you can rely and count on, but someone normally that brings Robert's background is someone that's going to be pretty pricey. And I remember sitting down with an accountant once. He's like, heady guy, someone with a Robert's background, several $100s an hour, right? Straight out of the gate. But if you want to have that level of capability at a very modest price, someone who has a heart for service, someone that'll meet you at where you're at with your launch of your business or your medium-sized business, and then bring you the tools that he can follow along, but you won't outgrow them. it will follow along and be able to stay with you as the business bolsters, probably play an important role in helping you bolster your business, then I would ask that you consider Robert. Also, all those of us that have been in that situation, if there's an impending wedding in the future, he's going to need the money. Okay, so
Yes.
Reach out and help him. Now we're going to get to the drum roll. We're going to get to the most important part of all of this. The GOAT Advisor is not just a podcast, and it's not just something that is you said, I chose Robert to be the GOAT Advisor. That we actually have an award. We actually have a trophy, the GOAT trophy, that we award to our advisors that fall under the greatest of all time status. And I got to tell you, I've heard it said, I don't know that it's true, but that it exceeds the prestige of the Heisman, right? That recipients of the GOAT trophy, right, remember it always. There have been those that have said that when they get to their final days and they're laying in their hospital bed with needles and respirators, they want to be clenching their GOAT Advisor trophy. So with that said, let me bring to the camera here Robert's trophy. You can see that it has the ugliest goat I could possibly find that would be mounted on the top of the trophy. We wanted to create something that's going to catch an eye with its hideous apparel, but it will say, greatest of all time, Robert Curts, GOAT Advisor. So congratulations, Robert. Thank you so much for the time and attention that you've set aside here. Thank you for being transparent, both with me as I was vetting you for this all important award, and also thank you for being so transparent and open about your professional, but also your personal life and background for the audience. Thanks once again for joining us. What I'm going to ask you to close with is any contact information, and we're going to put that on the screen, but any contact information that would help people, make it a little easier for them to reach you. And I'd like for you to also close with a statement. If somebody has a need for someone who may, and an openness and a willingness for someone who is needing a second chance and coming out of incarceration, how some insider thought as to how they might work with you on that project.
Sure. I think you're going to see the probably the contact information, will be my email and phone number on there. But also, yes, if you have someone that is either currently incarcerated or coming out, or they've been out for a while, they need some help, or they need some guidance on where to look for work, we can take a skill set analysis of it, and I know plenty of people that are hiring. There's an untapped wealth of talent there. You find the diamond in the rough, and it'll actually be a diamond for you.
Okay, well, great. Well, I couldn't be prouder to bestow the GOAT Advisor trophy on you. And again, thank you for your time and participation. From an audience standpoint, I hope you appreciate the effort being put forth by several people in our organization to better find you the talented, smart, high quality people that bring a strong value proposition. In other words, they're going to give you a fair service for the investment involved. This week, our choice is Robert Curts. Thanks once again for joining us this evening.